This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Watch us fight all through the night, deep in the heart of Texas. The trailer park is nice and dark, deep in the heart of Texas. That drinks his brew and he spits his chew, deep in the heart of Texas. The TV blares, but no one cares, deep in the heart of Texas. Here we go!
Hey, there you are. How is everybody? Welcome to Bois. King of the Hill podcast. I'm Mike.
And I am still rusty.
We are, it's been a weird day. We went to the studio and we recorded Friday's episode, and then we came home, and now we're going to record Monday's episode, the full episode. So just a little behind the scenes. Life gets messy sometimes, folks. And sometimes you leave your notes at home. And so that's just the way it works. All right, so we are dealing with season 7, episode 6, or in the year of our Lord 7 ABE 04, Full Metal Dust Jacket.
Yep, I like this one.
Yeah, it's actually pretty good. This one's from January 5th, 2003. Is that right? Did I get the name? Did I get the date right on that one?
Yeah, I think so.
I can't remember if I changed it or not.
Dogs in my face.
Directed by Adam Kuhlman and Clay Hall. Written, of course, by Mr. Judge, Mr. Daniels, and Dan McGrath. This is Peggy opens her own bookstore, but when she discovers that customers are non-existent, she reluctantly allows Dale to sublet space so he can sell guns.
January the 5th, 2003, if that's what you
January
said.
5th, 2003. Yep. Okay, good. Yep. I got it right.
134th episode of King of the Hill.
134.
134.
How many are there total?
I don't know.
I mean, it's got to be, if there's 14 seasons, and let's say there's 280 would be 20 per season, so it's got to be over 300, I would think.
Yeah, let me see real fast. There's 259.
259. Okay. All
259,
right.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that like first season was a little shorter, and as they got into the later seasons or whatever. So
yeah, there's definitely differences in numbers and how many they have per season. Yeah.
Right there in the middle, though, they were hitting their stride, and they did 20-something episodes a season. So.
Yeah, like 22 to 24, I think is the most they ever did.
That's a lot. That's a lot of episodes, especially compared to the stuff we see today, which is like 10.
Yeah, for sure, definitely a lot.
All right, so we start this at Tom Landry Middle School. Peggy is substituting. Not sure what class she's substituting in, because all it says on the board is Mrs. Peggy Hill on books discussion today. So I don't know. I guess this could be an English class, or it could be whatever.
Yeah, maybe.
We know it's not Spanish.
Definitely not Spanish.
So she starts in front of the class. She's holding a book. She says, today we'll be discussing A Tale of Two Cities, a terrific book by that most Dickensian of authors, Charles Dickens. Well, yeah, that's the way that works.
That is exactly how it works.
She looks at them and she says, okay, you've all read it, which they have not. She says, come on, let's get a dialogue going.
But for those that don't know, Dickensian, whenever they say Dickensian type of novel, they're talking about poor social conditions, comically repulsive characters that poor, it's like a poor thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he wrote a lot of poor books for the poors.
He did. He was a lot of these little urchins on the street kind of thing.
Yeah.
Hey,
he wasn't a fan of poor people. He was either a really big fan of poor people or he didn't like poor people. And
it's one or the other.
One of the two.
Luke is in the chat with us. Just thought I'd give him a shout out.
Luke.
And just say, hey, thanks for being here. Thanks for coming over, by the way. Okay, so the first student and we don't know any of these students, with the exception of Dooley. And the first student says, I really like the guillotine. She goes, yes. He goes, why don't they have more guillotines here? And she says, well, I don't know, but the theme. And then the second student is like, did everyone ever try to pull their head out of the guillotine at the last minute? So just like the top of their head got chopped off. Which, fair question. Maybe not the place and time.
It could be a history class if they're talking about the guillotine. Could be a history class.
Yeah. She says, okay, are there any questions not involving the guillotine? Anyone? Anything? So that's it. What about class differences? What about romantic love, sacrifice, regret? Everything in life is between the covers of this book, people. And she is getting really angry. And when she starts doing that, she starts shaking the book and all the pages just start flying out of the book all over the place.
And she gets mad.
And of course, Dooley, in his own way, always there for a timely comment, says, "You went crazy," and that's it. Like
and already put in his notes #pushy Peggy.
That is pushy Peggy. Yeah. So she gets down, she starts picking up all the pages. We transition over to a place called Laura's World of Books. And there's one lady inside. Peggy is going into the store. There's one lady inside, and she's talking to another lady, and she says, "My husband likes his stories. People say he was a poor man's Hemingway, but I think Hemingway was a poor man's Hemingway." And ha ha ha, everybody laughs. Of course, Peggy inserting herself into this stupid group of people saying nothing says, "Oh, poor man's Hemingway." And then Laura kind of, because you know how Peggy is, she pushes her way into conversation. So
yeah, for sure.
The pushy Peggy thing, right on the money. Laura, who is the owner of the bookstore, inserts herself, says, "Can I help you find something?" Peggy says, "Well, yes, I'm looking to replace my well-worn and fully understood copy of Tale of Two Cities by Charles." And Laura finishes her sentence by saying, "Dickens, of course, it's in the classics in your left." And then
I got a quick voice actor name. So Laura's played by Allison Janney.
Yeah, the lady that she was in Mom.
Yeah, she was in Mom, but she was also her breakout role was actually West Wing. She played what was the name of the character that she played? She played CJ Craig in West Wing for like a bunch of years or whatever. But
She's been in so much, she's been in so much stuff. But
yeah, she has been in a lot. She's got like Tony Awards for Broadway. It's like she was in View from the Bridge. She was in 9 to 5 as well.
Her voice is one of those I just pick out. You know, I mean, it's very, very familiar to me.
She was in Juno too.
Yes, she was in Juno. Absolutely.
American Beauty as well. That's a good one, American Beauty.
So the other lady is talking to Laura at that time, you know, when she came in and pushed her way in the conversation. She goes, "Anyway, I hope tonight's discussion will be as spirited as the last one." And Laura says, "Oh, you bring the opinions, I'll bring them low." And sure it will be. It's this little chatter that people have sometimes that is just, I don't know. You know, Peggy, number one, always has this imposter syndrome thing going where she thinks needs to be part of this crowd that she's not a part of, which her life,
because these women are like these suburban mom kind of feel to them, like, hey, let's go get coffee and chat about nothing kind of thing. And Peggy's just, she's like this Midwestern, Bigfoot, big hooved, like,
well, the other thing is
intelligent person.
The other thing is, like, if she didn't insert herself into this, her life would be no different. You know,
not at all.
There's nothing to be gained here, right? You know, out of this other than make people like me. You know, that's really it. Now, speaking of the suburban mom kind of stuff, my buddy and I were given some tickets to go to a concert in Dallas the other night. And so we're whim guys, so we'll drop anything and just go. It was in Deep Ellum it used to be called the Bomb Factory. You can't say bomb anymore, so it's just the factory now.
Okay.
But it was for a band called Travis. And I don't know if you know that band, but they were big. They were big in Europe. They've not played the US for 16 years. The lady that gave me the tickets, they were like $40 tickets. So I mean, they were decent. You know, it's a good show.
Yeah.
But the lady that gave me the tickets, she goes, "Oh, the VIP tickets went on sale, so I went ahead and bought those. So you can have these." I was like, "Okay, whatever. You're just throwing money away, but whatever." And then the next night, she was going to Austin to see him again. So I mean, diehard fan, right?
Super fan.
But I'm going to tell you, not my jam. Just simply because it was, I would say, 50 and up as far as the crowd goes. A lot of how do I say this? Europeans. I don't know how else to say that, but you could just like
euros.
Well, they're like, the leather pants and, jackets and things, and they're all coiffed really well and all this stuff. And then a lot of, number one, it's all white people. And so there's a lot of this kind of dancing, kind of stuff over in the corner, where everybody, they feel like they're getting wild tonight because they're having a wine cooler or whatever. I don't know. The music was, they came out the same time as like Blur and Coldplay and those kind of groups.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so it's a lot of that, like, hey, let's rock, but keep it at a decent level kind of thing,
all mellow.
Yeah. There's a lot of mellow stuff. I think the thing that represents it the best to me is the art behind the band was just a giant colored circle. And so I was like, oh, that's safe. It's nice and safe. But the best thing about it is we went to Gus's Fried Chicken before. We always go there when we're in Deep Ellum. Got food poisoning from the potato salad. So that was neat.
No. Yeah, I had a case of food poisoning myself here recently.
we were both standing there uncomfortable as hell, but neither one of us knew that we were going through this thing. We would have left an hour before we did, but instead we just like, we're going to gut it out. That kind of thing. Idiots should have just left.
Yeah.
But anyway, having said all that, she says, I'll bring the Merlot and I'm sure it'll be a great night. And of course, Peggy pushes her way in. Merlot, well, excuse me, you must be talking about a book club. And then the other lady is ready to get the hell out of there because she doesn't want to talk to Peggy. She says, we are Ebonu, and I guess that's French for goodbye or something. And she says, pardon my French. And then, of course, Peggy, having to be as smart as everybody else, says, oh, es de nada. And my Spanish needs no apologies.
That's such an asshole thing to say, because pardon my French is like an expression, but nobody just says, well, my Spanish needs no apology. It's such a like,
needs no apologies.
In your face asshole thing to say.
She's really an asshole. She says, as one intellectual to another, and she's talking to Laura now, she says, I must say your book club sounds fun, and I do happen to be free tonight. And Laura, who does not mince words, you're not free. You have a date with Dickens. That'll be $5.95. I mean, she's just like, see you, lady. Get out of here. I don't like you. All right, so we transition over into the alley. We got all four guys. So we got Dale, we got Bill, we got Boomhauer, and we got Hank. And we hear, yep. And then, of course, here comes Peggy. She comes in, grabs a beer out of the cooler and says, oh, mind if I join you? I'm in kind of in the mood for some stimulating conversation. Well, number one, she knows she's not going to get stimulating conversation out there.
Yeah, I don't know why she would even go inject herself into stuff like cheese and butter conversations, because that's a manly type. That's not manly, like masculine, but that's like a thing two men would discuss. Like, you're never going to hear two women talking about the texture and color of cheese and butter.
That's true. That's true. She wants some stimulating conversations. And so Dale, of course, is like, oh, you've come to the right place. Now, Bill, you were opining on a matter of some import. Bill goes, oh, yeah. Why is it I like butter and I don't like cheese? They're both yellow. Is it the texture? It's just such a stupid argument. And then Hank is like, you do too like cheese, Bill. I've seen you eat it. He goes, no, I don't. And then Peggy, of course, trying to stimulate the conversation. Remember A Tale of Two Cities, Dickens? Well, I'm in the middle of rereading it, and Hank stops her and goes, Peggy, you've seen Bill eat cheese. And then Bill's like, why won't you take my word for it? And Peggy says, Bill, cream cheese is cheese. No, it's not. It's butter. And she walks off. I mean, that's the entire conversation is about fucking butter and cream cheese.
Yeah, she was better off not even wasting her time with that.
She would have been better off talking to Bobby about it, I think.
Yeah, Bobby probably would have more stimulating conversation than
Bobby would have had more stimulating conversation. All right, so now we go back to Laura's books. And Peggy is still trying to get into this book club for some reason. She says, and if I'm in your book club, I can assure you'll never have to worry about long, awkward pauses. Well, what do you think? And basically what she said is, if there is a pause in the conversation, I will say something. I will interject myself, which I don't know anybody who wants that. I mean, you don't want that talkative person just so if we take a break from talking to each other, she just spouts some shit. I mean, but
yeah, because sometimes pauses are like necessary in conversation, like
absolutely
to help a conversation segue or move along a little bit. Sometimes a slight pause, and if she's just like, you got to think sometimes, and if you don't have time, especially at book discussions, I've been in book clubs and book discussions and stuff before where you discuss a book and everybody reads it together, kind of thing, whatever.
I think you said the most important part when you said you got to think sometimes.
Yeah, you got to think. So, like, if
Mhm.
you're just a constant stream of consciousness, there's no pause for everybody to ruminate on a topic or what you're talking about, or to
Yep.
help the conversation like develop and grow forward. Because if you're just filling it with just like Peggy would just nonsense, it's not. It doesn't. There's no growth in the conversation.
Pauses are part of the conversation. I mean, that's ultimately pauses are part of the conversation because you do have to get your thoughts together and you don't want to just spit out words for no reason. But not Peggy. She's there. She can fill all those holes for you.
It also
Uh,
indicates active listening too.
that's true.
A pausing moment is showing that you're actively listening. Because if you're not pausing and you're just a stream of whatever, then how are you ever able to like process what anybody said to you?
That is absolutely true. Absolutely true. So Laura says, if it were up to me, I'd think about it. Wow, what she's really made a commitment there. She
Yeah.
goes, but they only invite me because I give them a discount on their books, and I'm closing the store soon to retire anyway. My lease is up. She goes, retiring? She goes, yeah. Everybody keeps saying leave Arlen, but I've always wanted to spend my later years someplace where it's nice and cold all year round. Okay.
All right.
Now I want us to take a second and appreciate how fast this is occurring because
It's pretty quick.
all that just happened, and I got to think it's like 2 days, right? Is she was in class, she shook her book so hard it fell apart. She went to the bookstore, found out about a book club. Lady said she's retiring, so she said, "Hey, how about I take over your store?" I mean,
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
just like that, right?
Really
And,
quick. Yeah.
and so the next thing we see is Hank and Peggy, and Hank is reading a lease agreement. He goes, 600 a month for 5 years. I don't know. Peggy's like, Hank, I really need to be around people who love books. I will do all the work, and all you have to do is co-sign. You are the one with an income, and the house is in your name. Oh, please, Hank. She goes, I will be raking in money with one hand and reading my book for the book club with the other. He looks, and he'll do anything for her, when it
Yeah.
comes down
Even
to it.
risk his house for her.
And think about how long ago this was. $600 a month. I mean, that's not much, honestly.
No, it's really not. Yeah.
Luke said, after which Hank made love to her feet.
Yikes.
I don't
Maybe not.
want to
Yeah.
think about that toe jam. But he signs the papers. She's exceedingly happy. My question is this the only money that's changing hands? She's just taking over the lease. Does she get all of the inventory and everything else? Because that's never really addressed. I mean, the lady's
Yeah. They
just
don't
like,
really address that, I guess,
the
at
lady's just
all.
like, here, have it all. I mean, you would think she could get somebody to pay something for it. But anyway, cartoon, we're good. We're in Arlen. All right. And so the next thing we see is Laura handing the key to Peggy. And she says, my sacred mission to bring literature to Arlen is now yours. And she hands the key to her and she goes, oh, Peggy says, oh, wait, 1 minute. One last thing. And she says, by the way, a van drove off in the front of this scene, and the van said Arlen Stein Company on the side of it.
Okay.
And they revealed the new name of the store, which is Peggy's World of Books. But Peggy, the only thing she cares about, and she says, when do I start to attend the book club? I mean, that's really all she gives a shit about.
That's
And
it.
she's
Yeah.
committed to $600 a month for 5 years so
Just
she can
to be
join
in
the
a
damn.
book club.
She can
Yeah.
be in a
That's
book club.
insane.
Yeah. Yeah. And so Laura says, oh, well, the next meeting isn't for a couple of weeks. I'm sure they'll stop by. Best of luck to you. And she just leaves. Right. Peggy is, she looks at, she just like stands in the store and she goes, okay, this is it. Showtime. Nothing happens. She kind of turns around and goes, showtime. I don't know what the hell she was waiting for to happen. Like just a throng of customers come through the door.
Yeah, bookstores are tough. They're hard to, especially in today's world. But even then, like bookstores have always been hard to operate. And the way the one that we have here in town, that's probably one of the longest running ones, Golden Books, like one of the
Yeah.
longest used bookstores that I can think of in town. Like they've had books. I've been in there and they've had some of them books sitting on them shelves for the 20 plus years that I literally could go to the exact same section. And some of those books have been sitting on those shelves for 20 years. And when you pull them off, you have to hit a little bit and get the dust off of them before you open them. So it's a hard market.
It's not a super profitable business when you have a big bin that's full of romance novels that are 10 cents a piece.
Yeah, or they have a shopping cart out front with books for free, like
just for free. Yeah,
books that they can't do anything.
Tired
with,
of
they're
looking
gonna
at
have to
it.
throw
Don't want it
away.
anymore. Yep.
And it's funny. I went inside sometimes and I've
Nice
inquired
people, though.
about. Yeah, they're
Nice
great
people.
people, really good people.
Yeah.
And they have like a great buyback system too that they have, and a credit system and stuff when you can take in old stuff
They
and,
used to
trade
pull
it
my
in.
comics for me and stuff when I was a kid too. Like they would set all the comics aside, every Tuesday and all that stuff.
Yeah. Hey, Jordan, welcome to
Hey, it's
the
Jordan.
live
What's up?
stream.
Hey, it's Artie. Hey, look at there. Books
Yeah.
don't expire, but they do lose value. Yeah, that's
Yeah, for
exactly
sure.
right.
So, like, they have a shopping cart out front or whatever that would always have like discarded books, but
Mhm.
also they would have like all these old encyclopedia sets. And when I was a kid, I liked encyclopedias a lot, and they would think it's funny when people would go in there because most of the people that go to buy the encyclopedias from them are for some type of ornamental piece in their house.
Sure,
It's
sure.
to it's to like clean up and have like a certain color wave or something with
Mhm,
books. And I think
mhm.
I think it's funny people who use books for decorations and don't read them. I just think that's an odd phenomenon.
Well, and we're about to see that with Dale. It's going to be the same thing. It's basically a decoration that he's talking about, but it's more, I don't know, nefarious reasons or whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
So later on, there's still nobody there. You see Hank and Bobby walk through the door, and Hank's like, "Hello there, ma'am. We're here to support our local bookseller and buy some books." She goes, "Oh, well, thank you, handsome patron." He goes, "Bobby, why don't you go look in the adventure section? Anything about a boy with gumption should be
Should be
fine,"
fun.
which I love that. That's my favorite
The
from this
Hardy Boys
entire
or
thing.
something.
So, boys with gumption. Uh, and Bobby goes off and he looks at a few books and nothing really holds his interest. And then he sees something called the Elves of Evermore series. There's unicorns and elves and all kinds of stuff. And he picks up one and reads it, and it says Clea, Huntress of Dragonvale, part of the 5th of the Elves of Evermore series. Huh. And so he's kind
I
of
like how they don't say part 5 or the 5th.
yeah,
It's part the 5th.
part the 5th of the Elves of Evermore series. Yeah. Here's the thing about this. I do wish we had more of Bobby daydreaming this stuff, because it could be fantastic, honestly. Like just the one little clip we get here in a minute of Bobby daydreaming because he's reading these books is great, but it's kind of a throwaway in this episode. I
Yeah.
wish we had more of that. If
Artie
they were
had a
making
cool,
it today, it'd be cool.
yeah, it'd be really cool. Artie had a cool thing I forgot to mention here. Peggy's lease is for $600 a month for 5 years.
Yeah.
So he did inflation on average book price. So at a rate of $12 a book, she would have to sell 50 books a month to cover her rent.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Not gonna happen.
Not going to happen. Yeah, Luke says Lord of the Ring cheap knockoff. That's exactly right. Yeah.
That's exactly what it's. Or actually, there is the Dragonlance books, which are all Dungeons and Dragons books. That's
Yeah.
probably more of what that is than
Could be.
OCR.
It's the YA model, right? The young adult books, that kind of thing. Artie says
Yeah.
this is a hint of Bobby getting into tarot cards. It could be the gateway drug he needed.
Yeah.
All right. So next day, we see that great overview of Arlen's shot that we always talk about, the rising sun kind of thing over the water
Yeah.
tower and all that. And then it goes over to Peggy's World of Books, and she's already put up signs in front of the store that all say Peggy's World Parking. So they put these signs up. Nobody's parked there, but and the store is completely empty. Peggy is there just kind of bored. She's listening to the radio, and you overhear, "You're listening to Peru Today on listener-supported public radio," which, okay, Peru Today.
Well, actually, so this is something I'll go ahead and tell everybody real
Yeah.
fast while we're here. So there is this cool radio. It's I'm not gonna call it a radio, but it's a app or a website or whatever, and it's called Radio. And it's like, how many O's is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 O's. But it's real cool because it's an international thing. So what it has at the bottom of the screen, it has a slider for years, starting at the early 1900, and you could slide what year you want. And then it has a map where you can click on countries. And it's like a map of the world. So you could like listen to 1970s Afghani music, or you could listen to 1940s Japanese music, or you could listen to 1920s Swedish music. And
That's
it's
pretty
a really,
cool.
really cool
Yeah.
app. Yeah, I
It's
actually
almost
paid
like
their premium
it's almost
plan
like
and
that
use it.
internet time machine thing, but for radio.
Yeah, kind of. I pay for their
Yeah.
subscription to it because I
Yeah.
think it's valuable to me because I I like world music or whatever, but it's really neat. So like you
That's
can
cool.
click on like African countries like Algeria and listen to 1970s Algerian music and stuff like that. I found a lot of cool music using that, but they have a thing at the top of the screen. It's 3 dots, and it's you can click them all, or you can just click one or click two, but it's slow, fast, weird.
Hmm.
So it gives you like a slower tempo music or faster tempo music or just plain weird music.
That's
So it's
actually
pretty
that's
neat.
actually pretty brilliant. I mean, that's
Check
got to
it
be a
out.
pretty useful thing. That's pretty
Yeah, you
cool.
need to check it out, Mike. It has a deal on it
Brady.
too called
Oh,
Taxi. Yeah, it's 5 O's. It's called Taxi, and you click on it, and it does like a whole world thing. And you could click too and make it to where it's only like 5 countries in one time frame, and it'll just go through music in those 5 countries. So you can kind of edit it a little bit how you want it. And it also has an explore option that'll just cycle you through the whole repertoire of whatever. And there's like islands is what it's called, and it's like specifically it's kind of like
Pill
thematic themed stuff.
Pill
Oh, Pill
Gillis
Gillis.
is asking it. Pill Gillis is asking what the website was again.
It's called Radio, and it's 5 O's.
There you go.
Just
There you go.
radio.com. And then they have what's called thematic, and then you
Mhm.
could do like lazy island is just lazy music, or sunny and it's like upbeat music,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
lullaby and it's lullaby music, and there's 8 bits and it's just video game music, and kids playground where it's all like kids songs from all over the world and stuff.
That's
And
cool.
there's a
Huh.
Christmas one and a Halloween one. Yeah, I used it for Christmas and Halloween as background music
You got it, Bill.
during the holidays. But yeah,
Wes,
yeah, it's pretty cool app.
Artie also talking about the overview thing. He said that's a Wes Archer influence, and he's
That
absolutely
is
right. We've
definitely
talked
West
about that
Virginia.
many times. Yeah. All right. So she's obviously bored. There's nobody in the store. Now we're with Hank and Peggy in bed, and Hank says, "So how's this?" She goes, "Fantastic. Best decision I ever made in my life. Good night, Hank." She rolls over, turns off the light. I mean, she knows shit's
It's
not going
tough.
well. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not going well. Okay, so next day at the store, she's there. She's bored as hell. She's got a house of cards that she's built. Just how you start putting the playing cards up and you build those houses of cards or whatever.
Yeah.
Somebody comes through the door, rings the bell, and she goes, "Oh, Dale." He goes, "So this is a bookstore. Smells boring." He's coming through. He's eating an apple. I don't know that I've ever seen Dale eat an apple, but
I haven't either. Yeah.
she goes, have you thought about, he goes, have you thought about putting sawdust on the floor? I'm getting apple everywhere. She says, I'm sorry, Dale, but this store is reserved for customers and literati. So why don't you take your apple? He goes, it's a bear burn or a bray burn.
I actually have a quick little
About the bray burn?
fun fact about the Brayburn. It's actually a hybrid of the Sturmer Pippin apple and the Delicious apple.
Okay.
And it was origin is in Nelson, New Zealand in the 50s when this apple was crossbreeded. So it was what they call a chance seedling, which is an unintentional breeding of 2 types of apples or whatever. So the guy was growing these 2 apples, and one apple kind of like boom and did its own thing, and that was how he cultivated it. So it wasn't even something that was intentionally done. It was just like a random chance seedling of a apple tree creating this Brayburn
Anything
apple.
has to be better than a Red Delicious because they have zero taste to them. They're
Yeah, they're
just
not
not.
great.
They're not great. They've been overbreeded or something. They're
They're not that great.
rough.
I don't really like
Yeah.
them. I like the Fuji's as myself. I like a Fuji
Artie
apple.
Artie had a great point here. He said very prophetic, building a house of cards. And he's absolutely right. She's building a house of cards in this whole thing with Dale, and it all comes tumbling down just like her house of cards did. So he goes, it's a Brayburn. She goes, and get out. He goes, okay, wait, I'm a customer. I'd like your thickest book, please. Well, something's up if Dale's asking for a thick book.
Yeah, for sure.
He flashes some cash, and Peggy's like, oh shit. And so he gives her the apple core. She lets him back in. She goes, here's the Odyssey. It's thick, it's old, it's Greek. He goes, oh, this looks promising. And he gets 3 guns out that he's carrying on him.
Yeah.
And then he opens up the book and he puts his gun on the top of one of the book and starts cutting it out with his knife. And he's like, nah, nah, nah. She goes, what the hell are you doing? He goes, can't hide a gun inside it without hollowing it out unless you have some pre-cuts. Like she's going to have pre-cut for whatever gun he's got,
Yeah, for sure.
A big muscly guy comes in the door And he says, pardon me, ma'am, but can you give me 4 quarters for $1? She goes, no, I'm sorry. I have a sign. She shows him the sign. It says, no change unless you're a customer. And he sees the gun that Dale has, and he goes, hey, how much for the 1911 A1? He goes, oh, this baby's yours for 300 American. He goes, sold. Yep. Just hands him $300, hands him a gun. That is the way things work in America, by the way.
Yeah, well, not just America. So this is something Artie mentioned in his notes. So he said Texas gun laws must be pretty relaxed because Dale sells a gun to a perfect stranger during a random meeting. Well,
very much are.
The way it works in Texas is licensed dealers are required by law to conduct an NICS background check, which is like the whole government, like the big background check. But private sellers, if I'm selling a gun to Mike, me and Mike, I just sell it to him. Mike has to go and make sure that he registers and transfers the gun ownership to himself. Like he has to do the paperwork to say he owns the gun and I don't own it anymore. But I could sell it to Mike without any legal problems or anything like that. There's no like regulation agency that's going to come in and say, hey, well, you sold a gun without a licensed dealer and all that. No, like if I want to transfer gun ownership to Mike, there is
it's very little involved.
Very little involved. Well, and actually, if I'm correct, and I'm pretty sure I'm right, Texas doesn't even have a registry for a state firearm registry. So, like, if I were to give the Mike to gun, Mike doesn't really have to do much in the way of any of that kind of thing. Like, it's his gun. So
it's true. I don't know why we haven't been doing this before, but I'm going to start throwing the chat up on the screen there with us. Because like Artie said, he also gave the dude the quarters he came in for, which is that's true. That's what happened.
There's one last little law. So there is a federal law. It's called straw purchasing. So I can't buy the gun knowingly purchasing that firearm on someone else's behalf. So say if Mike's a felon and I buy the gun for Mike and I give it to Mike, that's called straw purchasing. Or if I buy the gun and give it to somebody else without the intent of it being a gift, then it's illegal. But there's people that buy, that's a gift for wealthier people. Obviously I'm not buying $1,000 gun and giving it away to somebody, or $800 gun, but like you're allowed to gift guns and stuff like that. So there really is, like, the laws are really
pretty lenient.
And even 18-year-olds can buy handguns, but only through private sales, but they can't legally carry them. So you're not legally allowed to carry the pistol around, but you could legally purchase it at 18 through, Texas is really, and it's gotten even more relaxed over the last 4 or 5 years, because they've changed a couple of the laws to where you no longer have to have a license to carry a pistol. You could carry it concealed and openly without the concealed handgun license, even though some people still do go and get the concealed handgun license just to be up and up on things.
Yeah, it's it's not great what we're doing with guns in this country. And you start talking to people in Texas about guns, you're going to get your earful. There's going to be a lot of people talking to you about that. They very, very, very worried about people taking their guns away from them. Peggy says, Dale, you cannot sell a firearm in my bookstore. He goes, I know. You want your house cut. 20% to the madam, $60. So he hands her $60, and she's like, "Oh,
this is hilarious. This particular line, in theory, I reject this money." It's such a Peggy way to say, "Oh, I don't really think this is ethical, but I don't really care about ethics enough to not take your money."
She goes, "In theory, I reject this money. It is only in practice that I accept it." Well, that's the same damn thing, Peggy. He goes, this is a perfect gun selling location. So how about it, Peggy? Can I sell guns in this location? I got literally oodles of guns at home. She shoves him out the door and says, thank you for shopping at Peggy's World of Books, and just gets rid of him. So later we're watching, she's there at the store. And again, it's totally freaking empty except for this one old lady. She's standing there reading through a book and eating a cookie. Pill, we're right with you there as far as hating Peggy. She's watching this lady read a book, and she's like crossing her fingers like, oh my God, I hope she buys a book. I hope she buys a book. I hope she buys a book. The lady puts the book down and just leaves. And she goes, oh, thank you so much for eating my free cookies. In comes Laura, the lady who used to own the place.
Yep.
She says, hello, I just came by to see.
No, not Laura. Oh. This is somebody else.
Oh, no, this is Laura. Yeah,
is
she
it
came
Laura?
in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. She goes, hello, I just came by to see. And she goes, oh, Laura, thank goodness you're here. I have only made one sale in the past 3 days, and that was just a greeting card. She goes, Peggy, this has never been a high volume business. She goes, but the lease, I mean, how did you? She goes, oh, the executor of my parents' estate sent a check every month, interest from some such account. She said, so
Full of
this
shit, Peggy.
yeah, this lady is just she's flush, so she doesn't really have to worry about it. She goes, I never quite followed it. I don't know, but you shouldn't concern yourself with that. We worship the written word, not the almighty dollar. Yes. And Peggy goes, oh well, yes, of course. And she goes, and worst comes to worst, you just get your husband to write a check, right? I'm taking one of the Joyces, and she just grabs a book and leaves.
Didn't even buy it. She just came.
No,
and
she didn't
grabbed
buy
it
it. She
there.
just
Yeah,
came in and
she's
took
like,
it.
oh well,
So
this used to be my store. What's her inventory technically? Because she
well,
never bought the
that's what
inventory
makes me
stuff.
think that Peggy didn't pay for the freaking inventory.
Yeah.
You know, honestly. So Peggy hand makes a sign, puts it up the window, and now it says Peggy's World of Books and Guns. That is our first commercial break. We will take that as Peggy decides to sell her soul and sell some guns, and we will be
right back.
And we are back. All right, so we are at the bookstore, Peggy's World of Books, and Dale's dead Bugabego is parked in front of the store, and we see Dale dusting and kind of setting up. He's got a coffee maker in the back. He's making espressos. He is all set and ready for his guns.
He's ready to sell something.
He's in the very back of the store, by the way. And somebody comes in. She goes, good morning. Word to the rise. We have a new collection of Barbara Kingslover's stories that is her best in years. These guys that just came through the door, they're all in overalls. They got beards. They're obviously there for guns, not for Peggy. And she goes, oh, guns, I suppose. And he goes, yes, ma'am. She goes straight in the back. We have a book called Old Yeller. It's about a boy who shoots a dog with a gun, like trying to get him to buy a
Trying to get somebody to buy a book. Yeah. Which is a horrible thing to say. Old Yeller, it was about a boy who had
who shot a dog
who
with
had
a gun.
to shoot his sick dog.
Yeah. They get to the back, and Dale's there ready for him. Welcome, gentlemen. The Tuesday special is Saturday night specials. Great. That's a great line. Feel free to browse. He reaches over and takes one of the guy's Slurpees away from him, and he goes, here at the Book and Gun, we're trying to maintain a certain, what do you call it, Peggy? She goes, ambiance. He says, right, ambiance. So we're having cappuccino.
I like that line. The Tuesday special is Saturday night special.
That's right. Yeah. Saturday night special.
Which, for those of that you don't know, Saturday night special is actually the nickname of what they call a 38 special.
38 caliber.
Nose 38 special. Yeah.
Yeah. The customer, he goes, we have cappuccino. The customer goes, that's like coffee, right? He goes, I don't know. Oh, and if some well-dressed ladies come in, you're just here to move a piano. So, I mean, he already knows they shouldn't be doing this to begin with.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely sketchy.
We're back at the Hill House while Peggy's running the store with nobody in it. Bobby is at the kitchen table, and he's got the newspaper up. But it's like, in TV where you see him like reading a newspaper like this. He's got it way up in front of him and stuff. And he's hiding something. But Hank comes in. He goes, what you reading there, son? He goes, sports page. He goes, oh, sports page. Well, all right, Bobby. How's the Cowboys defense? He goes, same old, same old. Oh, and then the book falls out. So he's actually reading this book.
Yeah.
And it's almost like it's pornography or something, but it's just about elves and fairies and shit.
Which that might as well be pornography to Hank.
That's true. I guess you're right there. Hank says, Clea, huntress of, I told you to get an adventure book. He goes, but it is adventure. He goes, the elf lord Fliffendale knelt upon the bed of dandelions. Young wanderer, quoth he, I have woven you a magic breastplate.
I think it would be great to do one of these Dungeons and Dragons books and put it into an AI and have it processed out as Hank's voice reading it, where Hank is reading an entire book that sounds like that. That would be hilarious.
He gets to the end of it and he goes, I have woven you a magic breastplate. He just looks at Bobby and goes, Bobby, television, and takes the book away from him and tells him to go watch the freaking television, which is crazy. All right. So then the next thing we see, we're back at the bookstore. There's a sign up front. And you see this a lot in like record stores, and you see it in video stores and bookstores and stuff. It says Peggy's Picks, and there's one
Yeah.
on one side, it's got Peggy's Picks. On the other side, it says Dale's Picks. The one that's pointing down from Peggy's Picks says Pride and Prejudice. So that's the book she's picked out as her pick. And then, of course, Dale's is just a gun laying there.
Yeah.
The customer comes in.
This part of it right here kind of reminds me of a Dallas Buyers Club movie, but instead of it being AIDS medication, it's guns.
That's right. It's guns. These guys are in the back. They are in line to buy guns from Dale because he's got a booming business here, no pun intended. He goes, he shows him a book, shows him a gun. The customer goes, I'm gonna go with the gun. Dale kind of looks up and he sees there's a police officer in line, and he goes, oh, morning, officer. And the cop goes, do you have a license to sell guns, sir? He goes, what I sell is a lifestyle free from. And then Peggy sticks her nose in real quick. Books. We sell books here. The guns are simply a promotional giveaway. He goes, yeah. Cop goes, okay, as long as everybody leaves the store with a book. Man, come on. It can't be that lax, can it?
It can't. Well, I don't know. I guess it could technically. I mean, like it's like with the Dallas Buyers Club thing. They couldn't technically legally sell the experimental medication, so they had to sign up for a club. They do it in Washington, D.C. too. So Washington, D.C., you're not legally allowed to sell weed. So people will sell you a $40 coffee and give you a free bag of weed. So I know they do that in Washington, D.C. for sure. For sure, they do it there. So they legalized weed, but they didn't legalize the sale of weed. So weed's legal. You can have as much of as you want. You can give as much as you want for free. So they started like these clubs where you come in, you buy a $40 bottle of Pepsi or something, and they give you the $40 sack of weed instead.
Well, there's kind of the same thing. If you're ever in a truck stop and you see that they have those little vases, the little glass vases that have like a single flower in them. Well, if you look at that vase real close at the bottom, it's got a little hole. That's just a crack pipe. You're just buying a crack pipe.
Absolutely. There's a lot of those things, a lot of crack pipes.
So he says to the officer, let me show you a stylish 9mm Luger that comes free with any $600 purchase of quality science fiction. It's insane. It's just insane. Let's see. We have, here we go. Pill Gillis, weed stores. Making donations, get the weed free.
California was the same. Yeah.
California was the same. And crack pipe.
That's how California used to do it. Yeah.
All right. So later, there's tons of cars in front of Peggy's World of Books. It's insane how many cars are out there now all of a sudden. There's she's over there. Peggy is over there dusting like the books and stuff. And a gun falls out. She goes, Dale, Glock. He says, oh, I've been looking for this little girl. And then you hear a gunshot from the back. And it scares Peggy. And he goes, oh, sometimes the boys like to go down in the basement and test their piece. But don't worry, I shut off the gas valve. Well, I shot off the gas valve.
That's not any more comforting.
She sees the book ladies coming into the store. She goes, oh my God, it's a freaking book club. Get your skinny butt down to the basement and pass out the silencers. The lady comes in. She goes, oh, Peggy, hello. It certainly is an interesting atmosphere you've cultivated. She kind of looks around and sees the guns and all this stuff. She goes, so the sign says you're selling guns now? She goes, oh, the sign, that old thing, the T fell off. It's really supposed to say Gunst. Surely you didn't come here today for Gunst. There's guys.
Which is a German word that translates to goodwill or favor in English.
Okay.
Actually. Yeah.
Okay. There's a bunch of burly looking guys leaving. They all got guns in their hands. She goes, enjoy good reading. She goes, well, yes, those people are here for historical reenactment club. Today we're doing America in the time of Whitman. And then you hear a bunch of gunshots again. The lady goes, what was that? She goes, oh, merely the anvil of the village smithy making horseshoes, no doubt. And then you hear machine gun fire from the bottom. Yeah. And she goes, one of the book ladies is like, yeah, well, we've come to place our monthly order for the book club selection, A Dinner of Onions and Peggy, of course, has to finish her sentence. Nora Harmony Wallace, of course, a chronicle of 3 generations of an American family. I always wondered why.
A cool fact, I guess, about the Dinner of Onions.
About onions?
Is that, no, the book, A Dinner of Onions. Obviously, it's not it's fictional for the TV show.
Sure.
But it's not the first time that the book is mentioned or shown. So in season 8, episode 19, the book is in Bobby's room as he's studying. That's called Stress for Success, is the name of that episode. Mutual of Ombois, season 9, episode 8. Peggy is reading it in bed. And then Doggone Crazy, season 12, episode 10, there's an old woman reading it with Ladybird. So
oh wow,
it comes up multiple times.
Oh, who knew? But she says, she goes, I've always wondered why nobody's ever done that one. And then a guy with his hand bleeding comes up and he goes, do you have any peroxide and a clean towel? I just shot my dang hand. She goes, oh, well, okay. The Confederate doctors will be here shortly to give you ether and saw off your arm. And she looks at the ladies. She looks at the ladies from the book club. She's just like, actors. And lady number 2, she goes, say, why don't you come to the meeting yourself? She goes, to the book club? Really? She goes, and bring your husband if you like. The club is mostly couples. And they leave. She goes, oh, yeah. And then she like turns to the store, all the guys in there to buy guns. She goes, ankle holsters all around on the house. And all the customers like, oh, yeah. So now all of a sudden she's giving away stuff. Now we see Hank and Bobby watching TV. And of course, on the TV, we hear, vaya con Dios. Let's see, what do we got here? He goes, Artie says there's a red dot floating around the lady's face from a scope. I did not get that. That's a good catch.
Yeah, I meant to mention that. Yeah, that's in his notes here.
Peggy comes into the room. It's Bobby and Hank there just watching TV. And of course, we hear Vaya con Dios. She goes, Hank, we're going to go to the book club. Read this by Friday. Hands him A Dinner of Onions by Nora Harmony Wallace. It's a very thick book, too, by the way. And she says, she goes, you are excused from emptying the garbage till this is done, and no TV. And she turns off the TV. She leaves the room, and Bobby looks at him and goes, you won't let me read a book that I want. Mom makes you read a book that you don't want. That's what the elves call Justice of the Unicorn.
Piss him off even more, Bobby. Why don't you?
That's really good, though. All right, so now we're out in the alley with the book. Hank is trying to get through this thing because he does love his wife. And we got Hank, Bill, and Boomhauer because, of course, Dale is there selling guns.
Dale is a gun salesman, yes.
He turns out the first 2 chapters, he goes, first 2 chapters were a dream. I'm not sure I trust this lady. And what do you make of this? Every time she cooks dinner for her father, she cries, but it's not always onions. Boomhauer being the most prolific one here. Yeah, man, see, my dang old father, he going to symbolize the past, man. Dang old dinner going to be like the future, you know. You're talking about stuck in the present, you know, just like dang old English class, man. And then Bill, of course, the exact opposite of this, says, I had onions for dinner last night. You can get them for 49. You can get a pound for 49 cents.
That's crazy to think that he ate onions for dinner. That's what he ate for dinner was onions.
Boomhauer is getting dinner. He is getting deep there.
He's the deepest one of them all. He's the most emotional, the deepest. I feel like he's a ladies' man. A ladies' man has to be a bit of a renaissance, you know what I mean? He's got to have a little bit of book reading and all, you know, knows what's hot for music. I feel like out of everybody, Boomhauer would be the one that's most up and up on whatever it is in women's pop culture to be able to have the conversations and things like that.
Use it as a tool.
Yeah, it's a tool. Yeah.
But I do like the fact that Bill might have ate an entire pound of onions for dinner one night.
I absolutely believe that he ate an entire pound of onions for dinner.
That's fantastic. Now we transition. We're over at Strickland, which we hadn't been to in a while.
And been there in a while.
Hank is basically like in the break room reading to all of the employees. He goes, as the ambulance pulled away, Cassie remembered the smell of onions from her grandmother's kitchen. The end. He closes the book. He looks over at Joe Jack. Joe Jack's got his head down on the table, and he goes, Joe Jack, you awake? Joe Jack pulls his head up, and he's got tears streaming down his face. And he goes, I got half a mind to go to Nova Scotia and kick that Benedict's ass, honey.
Well, it's funny because this is also the second episode that we've had where there's been like an onion reference in the episode. Because last week we were talking about eating onions like apples.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. Buck, of course, is there, and he goes, "Boy, that Cassie reminds me of someone. Hey, how big do you guys picture her tatas? I mean, that's
Buck,
that is so on brand. For
I think
Buck.
Buck is there while like Buck is Buck is the owner of the company, and he's sitting there allowing Hank to read this, I imagine, dramatic novel. And He's allowing it. Like he's the
Yeah,
boss,
I
man,
know.
letting
He's
this
just
happen.
there's no business taking place, anything like that. It's just Buck does rule, by the way. Yeah,
I
he's
like
the
Buck. He's all right. He's one of my favorite characters.
best. And then one of the other guys looks at Buck and he goes, she said it was slender as a willow, so I don't know, grapefruits. I mean, they're literally discussing this woman's breasts from the book.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're outside of the big old house where the book club's going to take place. Hank and Peggy are both dressed up. They drive up in the truck, and they are parked out front. And Hank looks at her and goes, "Come on, let's go. If we stay in the truck too long, people are thinking we're making out." God, you wouldn't want that.
No, not at all.
Peggy goes, "All right, Kafka. Kafka, born in 1883, wore glasses, burdened by father, loved to sleep in. Yes." And then she looks at herself in the mirror in the truck and she goes, "Peggy, you are ready." I mean, she has to psych herself up for this thing.
Yeah, I got a quick
go for it.
fact about Kafka. Kafka is actually an author. He's a Jewish Austrian Czech, as a mouthful as that is, and he wrote in German. So he was a Jewish Austrian Czech author from Prague who wrote in German, but he fuses like elements of realism and the fantastic, if you will, and a lot of his protagonists are like these really isolated people, and they face these bizarre and like really surreal predicaments and stuff like that. And there's like always this incomprehensible like socio-bureaucratic power that's in each of his books, and the term actually is Kafka-esque is what like used to describe what you would call absurd situations, like what he writes about. But a lot of the themes that he would have in his stuff is like alienation, existential anxiety, guilt, those kind of things. And he's best known, there's 3 novels that he's written that he's best known for, novellas. The Metamorphosis, The Trial, and The Castle are his 3 most known books. And I know that probably doesn't mean shit to King of the Hill guys, but I'm a well-read guy. I love reading books, and those books are really good. They're weird as fuck, but they're really good books.
What I was going to say about it is there's a Faraday Brothers movie that has John Goodman in it, where it's about a hotel. And I think I can't remember the name of it. I was trying to look it up, but it's basically a Kafka-esque type movie where the guy turns into a roach, and the place is on fire and all that stuff. All of those kind of symbols of doom that come out of the Kafka-esque type writing. And if you think German, Austrian, all that stuff, they're cold all the time, and they think everything is symbolized and that sort of thing. David Lynch.
There is a film. It's called Franz Kafka's It's a Wonderful Life. It's a short comedy. It was made by BBC Scotland. It actually won an Oscar. It was written by
this one has
Peter
John
Capaldi.
Goodman. This one has John Goodman in it, and I can't remember what the name of the movie is. It's like somebody's name, but also David Lynch, who just passed, by the way, who was a great director. He made some really cool weird movies. But he was supposedly about to make a Kafka movie based on one of the novels, and then he passed.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the Metamorphosis is pretty much just a guy who is like the salesman dude.
Yeah.
And he like falls asleep, and then
Yes.
when he wakes up the next morning, he's just a big insect.
Yeah.
And it's like he has to like it's about, and it's pretty much just this man versus man struggle, man versus himself struggle of him trying to come to terms with him that now he's this big ass roach instead of being a human being. They called him in the book. The German translation translates into monstrous vermin. Is what it
is. Barton Fink is the name of the movie. It's John Goodman, John Turturro. It's got Tony Shalhoub, Steve Buscemi, because you can't make a movie and not have him in it at some point.
Especially weird movies, and that's a really weird dude too. Is John Turturro? He's kind of a
weirdo,
out of there kind of guy.
He is. He's in.
That's
Severance.
A Coen Brothers film.
Yeah, Coen Brothers. That's who I was trying to think of. He is. He's in Severance, which if you haven't seen Severance, that's really good too.
That is a good one, yeah.
Good series.
Well, I recommend the Metamorphosis if you like. I mean, it's an old book. It's really old, so some of the language is harder to read.
There's a lot of
fucking weird.
There's a lot of media out there that has referenced Metamorphosis because that whole turning into a roach kind of thing. I also think of Kafka whenever I see that stupid meme of the dog sitting in a room that's all on fire and he's saying this is all fine. You know, I always think of like Kafka whenever I see that. Okay. So that got a little deep for you guys.
I didn't mean to go that deep, but there was a guy that made a comment on our YouTube page to kind of, I guess I didn't get under my skin, but I thought it was funny. He said, what was it verbatim? He said, so are we just narrating scenes from King of the Hill or do you have actual content? That's our content. There you go. That's the Kafka.
Whatever you like,
Kafka is the content. We do narrate the show, but we also do a little bit of
Bill Gillis says he's lost. Yeah.
Yeah, we did a little bit of literary stuff.
All right. So we were at Strickland. Now we are outside the house. She's getting herself all worked up. And they're walking up to the door for the book club. And she goes, now, if I tug my earlobe like this, just casually say that you understood what the author was going for and then trail off like, they get inside, and of course, we're back in the White People Fest here, where it's a bunch of, rich debutantes and guys. Yes, exactly, that kind of dancing. There's an older lady. There's an older lady in the corner who I thought for a second was Ann Richards, but it's not. But she is. You can picture Ann Richards, and you know what kind of people are at this party. She goes, I told him, mister, you may be on retainer, but if you retain my hand, your hand on my thigh like that, I will bite it off and I'll bill you for my time. And then everybody just laughs, Of course, Peggy tries to push her way into it. She goes, this is exactly like a scene at the dinner where Cassie confronts the hotel manager. Yes. And everybody's like, who is this lady? The older lady goes, honey, I couldn't get past chapter 3. That writer was trying way too hard to be Isabel Allende for my blood. And she goes, Peggy says, oh, great reference. Isabel Allende, Chilean authoress, born 1942. My source, the internet. Okay.
Why in the hell? My source? Whatever. Yeah, she wrote City of Beasts. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that. She wrote
My
City
source,
of Beasts.
The internet. And so now we go over to Hank. He is over there talking to a couple of guys, and one of the guys says, so you're saying it's both efficient and clean burning.
He's going to talk about that shit any chance he gets. So that's what I like. Right. That's what I like about Hank is his consistency. He is going to talk about propane. It's going to come up.
And clean burning. He says fascinating. Of course, Peggy walks up. She goes, oh, Hank, there you are. I was just wondering if you men had noticed the subtle change of perspective in book 2, the way the women have. The guy's like, book 2. Hank says, fellas, this is my wife, Peggy. And he goes, oh, delighted to meet you. Peggy starts tugging on her ear. And the guy goes, is your ear all right, Mrs. Hill? Hank goes, I understood what the author was going for in the book there, and just kind of trails off. So he did exactly what Peggy told him to do. I mean, he's being a dutiful husband.
Exactly. He did what she wanted him to do for sure. And then they mentioned, has she mentioned Mary Ellen yet?
Not yet. That's what's coming up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna hit it before we get to it.
Go for it.
We could just run and not be interrupted. So Mary Ellen is actually voiced by Perry Gilpin, who was Roz Doyle on Frasier. She played. She was on Frasier. I want to say that's really the only thing that she was known for. I think she played.
She's been in a bunch of stuff.
I think she was in Cheers too.
She's also in Julia.
She wasn't in Cheers.
She's also in Julia, the story about Julia Childs.
Oh, I didn't know she was in that. Yeah. Julia Childs. I was kind of pissed off, man. So they've got that new thing they call Fast TV, the free ad stream supported TV with Pluto TV and all that stuff that they've got now. There's like 5 or so. Like I went looking the other day and looked for a list of them. There's like 10 of these free TV service apps now.
There's tons of them,
which is awesome because you don't have to have antennas. I mean, it's great. I like it. It's great. And it gives you a lot of content that I really can't find anywhere else. But they had Julia Childs that would stream 24/7 on Pluto. But I guess not enough people were watching it. So they took it off and they added her onto the regular cooking. Well, they have a cooking channel. Like they have a bunch of cooking ones, but they added her to the generic cooking one and they run a couple of her episodes instead of running it 24/7. And I went to Reddit and just see what the conversation was about it in those channels, and people were fucking pissed. They were like, why would they take away our Julia Childs? Like I really like watching it. I don't know. I liked it for
Well,
background noise.
if I had to guess, I would say that it's like anything else. The first one's free, and then you got to pay for the rest of it or whatever. They
Yeah.
probably strung you along for a while, and then they're like, now we'll pull it and we'll just give them a few here and there.
Yeah, well, I
But
hope they bring
hopefully
it
they'll
back
watch the other stuff.
because King of the Hill used to be my background show, but since we grind it out like we do, I can't really watch it unless I'm
I get
watching it for getting ready for the show. And so I really miss it for my background noise. My background noise right now, I don't really have. I've been watching. I have a y'all can't see it obviously, but right here I have a desktop black and white TV where I've been running Max Fleischer and black and white cartoons on it whenever I'm just recording.
That's cool. I like that stuff. And that kind of stuff you really don't need to hear. You
don't. It's cool to watch. It's just like down in the
Yeah.
corner, just something to glance at, and while I'm paused in between games and stuff like that.
So we're transitioning a little later into the party here, and Peggy is talking, and she goes, "So, Mary Ellen, we just had a marvelous time. I can't wait to see you at the next meeting." So they're about to leave. She goes, "I was going to suggest that we read *The Dust Gatherers* by Nobel laureate Mitsuko," whatever she said.
Yeah, Matsumoto or whatever, which is
there you go.
That's not a real book or a real person.
Makosi Maputha.
It's just all King of the Hill stuff. That's not a real person or nothing.
Mary Ellen says, "Well, actually, I'm afraid this is the very last book club meeting. Scheduling nightmare, She goes, "Oh, last meeting? No. We can't let this drive. Why? I can drive, everyone. Where does everybody live?" I mean, she is so desperate to have friends. The other lady says, "I'm sorry, Peggy, but I'm so glad you were able to come for the final last meeting."
And it's funny that they keep saying it because they're saying it like they don't want her
trying to get it through to her.
Because to get through to her head, she didn't understand what it was. It was just an excuse for people to get a babysitter and have somebody watch their kids while they just hang out as adults for a little while.
Drink wine.
And Peggy's like fucking it up because Peggy wants a real book club where you actually discuss the book, which I've kind of mulled the idea of it for a King of the Hill Bois book club. We have a Spotify playlist, which if y'all go to a Bois King of the Hill, you can find a Spotify playlist that me and Mike have curated. But I thought about also adding in a book club to that. So if anybody's interested in that, email me at bwaaakoth@gmail.com. And that's anybody that only listens to us in audio, or if you watch us on video, that's everybody that listens to our show. That's something you would be interested in, let me know, and maybe we'll do that.
Hank says when they tell him it's the final last meeting, he goes, "Oh, I can't believe it. What am I going to do with my weekends now? Except watch sports." "Oh, well, Peggy." And he's like, he takes her hand. He's trying to get her to leave. She goes, "Hold on, Hank. I need to use the powder room. Maybe it's 10 cups of coffee I drank to stay sharp for this." I would imagine that she does put a lot of coffee in her system, a lot of caffeine.
These guns, Artie. It only comes with these guns, brother. We can't traffic guns across state lines, so no.
So she goes into he says, "I'll get the truck," and she goes into the bathroom, and she's kind of looking around, and she sees the New Yorker, and she's like, "Oh, the New Yorker." I mean, I never understood why people were so crazy about that, but whatever.
I like the artwork.
It was fine. I don't like cartoons that don't make any sense, but sure.
Well, one of the guys that I interviewed when I was doing the animation podcast, he was friends of F's, and he did some weird cartoons and stuff for the New Yorker.
Oh, did he really? I didn't realize he did stuff for the New Yorker.
Not F. The guy, I can't remember the guy's name. Elliot was his name. I can't remember his last name, but Elliot was the one that did it. He was one of Artie's friends on one of the shows that Artie had worked on. He's an Australian guy.
Huh. Okay, so she goes into the bathroom, she sees a New Yorker and all this stuff. She is able to overhear these two ladies out in the hall, right? And she goes, one of the ladies goes, "I guess it's all my fault. She gave us such a big discount. I felt I had to invite her." And the other one says, "Well, who knew she'd be such a big windbag?" Peggy is shocked to hear this. She comes out and she goes, as Cassie said, when the farmhouse burned brightly behind her, "I am an onion. Good day to you." And she just storms out, right?
Yep, she's
and
pissed.
When she gets out the door, she starts crying and she goes to the truck. And that is our second commercial break. We're going to take that. We'll be right
back.
There it is. And we are back. Okay. So when we come back, we start in a fantastical land, and it's Bobby's book whenever you start seeing this stuff. But
Yep.
it's Clea, from his book series that he's reading. You see out in the forest, there's all these goblins coming to attack a castle, and she's standing up top, kind of like a Braveheart pose or whatever. And she goes, "Surely as I am Clea, and the crystal of Gilmarion shines upon my brow, our forces shall rally and vanquish the goblin horde. What say ye, Hindbottom?" And she looks down, and there's a little troll there, and it's Bobby's voice coming out of him. He says, "I, my fell axe thirst for goblin blood to avenge my father Borak, my swift brother Regmar, Talonbeard, my cousin." And then all of a sudden you see Hank start as this giant walking through the forest, and he goes, "Dang it, Bobby." And then the dream cuts to reality. He says, "No more elves at the table. Your mom isn't feeling well." And by the way,
I kind of like what that kind of like represents, though, is his imagination is so vivid, and I can relate to him, but his imagination is so vivid when he reads books, he becomes so immersed in it that in his mind he is seeing all the, like a movie almost. Because that's like when I read books, like it's everything around me kind of just blurs out, and all I focus on is the book kind of thing. And in my mind, it's playing like a movie. So that's why sometimes when I watch the movie version of a show or of a book, or the TV version of a book, it's always, oh, well, that's not what he would look like. Like, oh, that's not what that character would look like, kind of thing. I always kind of do that because you already have like this preconceived idea of what all these characters look like, because your brain kind of like forms all these.
That's another reason. That's another reason I like audio fiction and stuff, because of the same thing. These people in scenes are going to look different in my head than they will in yours, and so I think it's cool. Anyway, he comes in there. By the way, Bobby is wearing like a little skull cap with one little horn on it. In the thing, he's this goblin or whatever, but we're now in reality. He says, "Your mom isn't feeling well," and Peggy breaks in and goes, No, I'm fine." She goes, and then you hear a honk outside, a car honk, and she goes, "All right, Dale, I'm coming." And she goes, "Great time for work. No rest for the windbag." And so she's referring to the fact that those ladies called her a windbag. Now we're back at the store, and we are currently giving out copies of Dinner for Onions, or Dinner with Onions, or whatever, whenever they buy a gun. So all those stacks of books, somebody just takes a Dinner of Onions and with them. And she goes, "Thank you, please come again." And there's one of the big burly customers up there, and he goes, "Oh, I got that one yesterday with my last gun." She goes, "Oh my God, how many guns do you need? Thank you, come again." And so he leaves. Dale comes up and he goes, "Peggy, would you wipe the fingerprints off this and wrap it up, please?" And hands her a gun. So it has just become a gun store, is all it is, right?
The gun store with a library surrounding it.
You see Hank coming in the front door, and he looks around and he sees all the freaking cars and all the business. All of a sudden, he's like, "Oh, what happened?"
Well, that's why these days when you see a bookstore, it's always a bookstore / something else.
Sure.
You got a coffee shop. There's no bookstore that I know of anymore that is just pure bookstore. Even Barnes and Nobles did a deal with Starbucks and has Starbucks inside a lot of their stores.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no just pure bookstore. There's always some added element.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. It's very, very hard to sell books.
Like that fabled bookstore, that one in downtown. It's got great coffee.
Huge cafe in there. Yeah.
The cafe. They probably sell more coffee than they do books. I'm almost certain of it. It's just like how fast food places allow you to get as much soda as you want, because there's like zero cost for them to do it. It's like the books there make no money and the coffee makes all the money, kind of thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't doubt that one bit. Hank finally comes in the door and he goes, "I've come to take the local bookseller to lunch." And he kind of looks around and goes, Peggy, which doesn't make any sense when something happens here in a second. But we hear pull from Dale, and then you hear gunshots, and he looks around and goes, "What the hell, Peggy?" He goes down into the basement. There's Cotton shooting guns down in the basement. He goes, "Dad?" He goes, "Dad?" He goes, "Well, look who's here shopping for my birthday. Get me something that shoots like this. Die!" And he starts shooting at the Shakespeare book, which it's the collected works of Shakespeare, and he's just shooting holes in it. So that's his target.
Which the artifact I have here is, there's 17 comedies of Shakespeare. Shakespeare has 17 different comedies that he wrote.
Okay. That would make for a big book.
Big book.
Dale looks at the book and goes, excellent grouping, Colonel, plus those hollow points penetrated Shakespeare all the way into the so-called joyous comedies. As you like it? Well, I like it plenty. Hank is still looking for, he doesn't know what the hell's going on. He goes, dang it, Dale, where's my wife? He goes, I'm probably on one of her smoking breaks. I don't think she's taking smoking breaks.
I don't think she's smoking. Yeah, I don't think she smokes.
Yeah. He goes, I try not to keep her on too tight a leash. And so he walks around the store still looking for her. And he goes, Peggy? He finds her behind the counter. She's down, curled up down there doing crosswords where nobody can see her. Now, he came in through the front door and he asked for her and she didn't answer. So I'm not real sure how that happened.
Yeah.
Whatever. He goes, what are you doing down there? She goes, nothing. Seems to be my mission in life. He goes, no, your mission was about books and elves and onions and such. Well, look at this. And he holds up a book with holes in it that somebody's been shooting. He goes, now, I'm not much of a Shakespeare department, but I still don't think he deserves to be shot at by those monkeys down there. She cries at a book with holes. He hands it to her and she goes, "In a Tale for Two Cities? I thought that was your favorite book." So she knows it's just a
conclusion. It's almost over now. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, down in the basement, they're still shooting at books. And Dale says, and so a farewell to arms to a farewell to arms. And
which is a Ernest Hemingway book, which was written about an Italian. It was written about the Italian campaign of World War One, is what it is. It's it goes a guy named I think the character's name was like Frederick or something like that, but he was like a lieutenant in the ambulance corps for the Italian army, and that's like the book about him.
Farewell to Arms is also one of the books. So in Evil Dead 2, when he has to cut his hand off because it's possessed, he puts it under a bucket and puts a bunch of books on top of it, and one of them is a Farewell to Arms. Yeah,
that's funny. That's a
very good joke.
Fun, yeah.
Now Peggy finally comes down to the basement because she knows, what time it is. Things up. She goes, Dale, your services at Peggy's World of Books are terminated as of now. Get out. He goes, you can't do that. She can't. She says, I can and I will. My name is on the lease. This is Peggy's World. You rent a space in it. So she has come to the conclusion. She's just like, all right, this is the way it's going to go.
Yeah, she had her fill.
Yeah, she's had her fill. She's had her fill. And so the next thing we see is Hank is putting up a banner on the front window that says business out of order, or business out of business. And then beside him, there's a guy on a ladder. He's putting up a bigger banner over the top that says coming soon, liquor trunk. And Hank starts to hand the key to him and he says, here's the key to the dumpster. If you don't lock it, the winos will sleep in it. The guy opening the liquor, what do they call it? The liquor trunk?
Liquor trunk. Yeah.
Right. Like that. Yeah. Liquor trunk. The guy opening the liquor trunk says, they are not winos. They are my customers, loyal customers. And then a big biker guy comes by and he goes, I'm looking for the lady who run the gun store. Hank says, oh, she's out of business. She's been referring people to Ammo World or Crazy Jerry's. The guy says, well, I just wanted to know if the first two chapters were really a dream or not. Hank's like, yeah, I wondered that myself. So now we transition. We're at the Hill House. We're in the living room. And there's all these bikers and burly guys and what looks like outcasts from the world. They were all customers at the gun store.
And it turns out they were actually reading the books.
That's right. They were actually reading the books she was giving away. And she goes, Travis makes an excellent point. Cassie's lighthouse can symbolize hope, but who says it doesn't also symbolize the government's intrusion into the lives of private citizens, as suggested by our friend here who won't give us his name.
Who looks like Ted Kaczynski.
He does. That's what I wrote down. I said, guy looks like Unabomber. Yeah.
Added that in there.
The bearded guy goes, Cassie's grandpa wouldn't give her an evil lighthouse. And then she goes, very good point, Muskrat. Any responses? This guy's name is Muskrat. And then the guy named Ox says, well, we can at least agree that Mary Elizabeth's baby was her own lighthouse. And the other guy's like, who ever heard of an illegitimate lighthouse? God dang it, Ox, you're confusing realism with symbolism again. Ox says, I'm about to symbolize my gun to your head. And then we get our credits because Peggy is now happy. She has a book club.
She got a book club, but she could have had it all along if she would have just talked to the guys buying guns, because they were actually reading some of the books that they were getting. That's crazy.
Peggy also had to get out of a lease that went for 5 years. So I hope Liquor Trunk took all the inventory and everything and took over that lease, because damn, that's a lot to say.
It's a lot to deal with. Get a
But
bottle of liquor and a book.
that is it, guys. We got to the end of season
that's it.
7, episode 8, Full Metal Dust Jacket. Originally aired January 5th, 2003. Now, I want to point out something at the very end of this. So I watch these on Hulu.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, there is something a little bit different from the script that was original to what Hulu has in it.
Yeah.
Now, originally in the script, yeah, you're right. Liquor Trunk will not go out of business. Originally in the script, there was the quote where Dale says, "What do you call it, Peggy?" And she goes, "Ambiance." Right? That was after the credits.
That was after the
credits.
Yeah.
On Hulu, you hear, "Take your apple." He goes, "It's a Bray Burn." She goes, "And get out." So they changed it.
So they
so
changed it.
I don't know why they changed it, because the first one's good too. And it's not like it mentioned guns or anything. So I'm not real sure.
Yeah.
But that is it for us.
That's it.
You want to tell them where they can find more of us?
Yeah, you can find us at BWAAAKOTH, and make sure to always send us in an email if you ever want it read out loud. If you don't send it, because I'm going to read it. BWAAAKOTH@gmail.com. So there you go.
Guys, we want to thank you so much for following us, especially today, because we did in 2 different places. But you followed us over here. You followed along. You chatted and all that stuff, and it's just really great to see you, and we really appreciate it. Today, I needed this more than other days, and so thanks again for being here.
Thanks friends, a lot. We appreciate it.
My friends on the internet.
I'm not sure there's much left to say, but Wima Tanye.
Wima Tanye, indeed. And we will see you guys next time. This has been a Rogue Media Network production.